So okay, I guess what I was saying was,
Try to repeat what you said in the
we have to make sure that when we're talking, there has to be common ground, right? So, in order for me to try to convey to you how I am seeing the world, then I think maybe we should just sort of step through the pieces that really qualify what it is. So, the first thing is, do we at least agree that there requires an infallible system in place for things to hold together? All things.
Sure.
Okay. And so if that's the case, how is it then that you, and this is the question, how are you, does God have to be the exception to that? Because does he not have to live within the confines of whatever it is that he exists in a universe that's exterior to our universe? Does he not also have to live in a space that is driven by a system?
According to the Bible, he's confined by his nature, so he can't lie, he can't be illogical, he can't exist and not exist at the same time. There's several things that he can't do, but that he's not a prisoner to other laws that supersede him, because then that would make him, he's constrained by his nature, so he can't do stuff that's against his nature.
Define nature. He's constrained by his nature, but that's not necessarily saying the same thing as I'm constrained by the law of gravity.
No. So in the Christian worldview, he made the laws of nature, and he's not bound by those. He can influence those. He could temporarily suspend the law of gravity if he wanted to, or whatever like that. Like Jesus walked.
He's an external influencer. In other words, if you were to use my language, he's an external influence on this bubble that he's created called the universe.
Yeah. But he does have restrictions according to the Bible. It's just people get confused because we always say he's omnipotent and everything. Oh, he's all powerful, so can he make a rock that he couldn't lift? And then they say the logical things like, well, no, to be able to make a rock that you yourself couldn't lift, that's illogical. So he couldn't do something nonsensical. He can't exist and not exist at the same time. He can't.
So he exists.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're making the same that he exists,
and in order that he's revealed to us that he can't do, like the Bible specifically says, he can't lie. So that means he's all good. So he's against his it would be against his nature to lie. So then if you can't say, oh, he's not all powerful if he can't lie, well, because it would be illogical for him to lie if he's all good.
That's an interesting statement to me, because by the very fact that you're saying that he can't lie automatically implies that he can make statements. He can actually make a statement to, well, I guess there are many references to that, Moses, etc., etc. So because he's doing those things, do we also agree that he is making decisions? Yeah. So in order to make decisions, he has to exist in whatever realm that he lives in. But in order for him to not just fall apart, okay, I'll use the word configuration again, because
he's not made of matter or anything.
No.
So he can't apply our rules to his. That he's got to have.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that does it not make sense that he requires that there has to be something holding him together?
I don't know.
Because
what he is, he's immaterial, so it's a mind. What's holding your mind together?
And I would say,
don't say your brain, because the mind is different from the brain. So.
Okay, we'll get to that one later. But because the statement that I was making earlier, everything requires a system. That would include my brain or my mind or whatever. It would still have to follow some kind of process. So if God is making decisions, there is something determining. Okay, there's something determining that he makes one decision over another. Because he could make many decisions. He's presented with many options, right? If he's making a decision, he can make one decision over another.
You just said he's presented with many options. Well, I don't know.
I don't mean presented.
Yeah,
sorry,
who's presented.
I used the wrong words there.
Okay.
He has many options when he's making a decision. Well, of course, right?
Yeah, I guess.
So those are the technicalities that I sort of dwell on when I'm thinking about whether or not God exists. Those technicalities, because I think those are the ones that are overlooked, right? Because you think of, okay, God, well, okay, the rules don't apply to him, so he can pretty much do anything, and so therefore I can.
Anybody who's thought about it doesn't say God can do anything.
No. But I just mean that
theologians or whatever wouldn't say God can do anything.
But I just mean that those logical arguments that I have, that to me can't be just sort of explained away or can't just be brushed off, I think are sort of just brushed off, because then you say, well, it's God. Okay, it's just God. It's just he's always existed, or he's just always been there. Like, okay, but I mean, how can you tell me that he is of a certain configuration, okay, and if he makes decisions and he makes statements, then he's of a certain mind, or he's of a certain configuration. He requires a system in order to exist in a certain way, right? So therefore, that to me would imply, that would automatically also imply that there's a system in place for him to do that. That he could make one decision over another. Because I can make a decision one way or another if I decide to take another drink out of this beer or not, right? And the rules that are in play in my existence are allowing me to make those decisions. So that's why I would think that God, just as with anything else, a universe or a multiverse or whatever, requires a system. I think that would have to include God. Otherwise, then you're saying that he's magical. Then you're saying it's magic.
Well, but what is magic?
To me, magic is like a way of saying 1 + 1 = 3 is magic to me. That would be a way to describe magic. It's something that makes complete illogical, doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever, but yet it still stands, it still holds. That's magic.
Actually, it's something they talk about in God's Story, that they talk a little bit about magic. There was a conversation, something about, I forget how it went, but just the fact that, like, if we think of a magician doing magic, he's doing a trick, but he's fooling us. Like, the person is saying, yeah, but the magician knows how it's done. He knows that it's a trick, and so does his assistant. And just because we don't know, if we knew, so he's not really breaking any laws of physics, right? It's an illusion. So that to me is what magic is. It's just something like it's trickery of the eye, but it's not really happening. So when you're saying magic, like 1 + 1 = 3 is magic, that's saying something that's actually literally breaking the law of
magic. Yeah, that's what magic. Because to me, the word magic isn't it's misdirection. That's what magicians are doing, right? They're causing you to believe a certain thing based on your perception of what's going on in the situation, right? And they're misguiding your mind into thinking that something's occurring that's really not. It's just perceived that way.
So that's what I just think of when I think of magic. But you're saying something.
Yes, but a magician is trying to demonstrate magic. He's trying to make you believe that magic is real, that he can do things that are outside that are not permissible by the laws of our universe, but yet he's still performing them. He's doing them right in front of your eyes, and you're thinking, wow, he's able to do those things. It's magic. It's outside of what's allowed in our system.
So you're saying if magic really existed, then this is what it would be.
That's what you're essentially claiming, that God would have to be magic. It's that he's able to make 1 + 1 = 3. He's able to do those things.
Maybe temporarily.
Or that his existence implies that something as illogical as 1 + 1 = 3 is possible. Because then, if you
God wouldn't do anything illogical.
Just by stating his very existence, I think is as illogical as stating.
I don't know if I equate the laws of physics as being the same as the laws of math. Like, I don't see
God allowing Jesus to be able to walk on water and suspending the law of gravity for a few minutes or whatever like that
isn't the same as making 1 + 1 = 3, because if 1 + 1 suddenly = 3, then that would be for all people at all times. Whereas he didn't suspend the law of gravity for anybody else; he just did it for Jesus at that one for a few seconds.
Yeah, let me bridge the gap there.
Okay.
So let's say God goes and actually changes the laws of physics, right? He would have to at some point make contact with our universe in order to suspend those laws for whatever time, right? So, to me, there's still logic there. You're not breaking logic. If you're God and you're influencing the system that you created, you yourself, within your own system, you're taking it upon yourself to influence another system. So essentially, and that's what I was talking about earlier, is that at some point they make contact. They would have to be one influences the other. So the realm that God is in, if he's able to suspend the laws of gravity, then he's making contact
as long as
from
we
his
take
realm
away,
to the
as long as I just don't like the analogy of the 1 + 1 = 3, because that sounds, suspending the law of gravity isn't illogical, but making 1 + 1 = 3 is illogical. So one is something God would do and one is something God wouldn't do. So
but again, I wasn't saying that that's something God would do.
Okay,
I'm saying stating his existence or asserting his existence, making a claim that God exists, is on the same level, because you have all of these other problems, these logical problems, where you essentially have to you have to do the same thing as convince me that 1 + 1 is equal to 3, because his existence poses problems. I mean, there's the infinite regress one for one. Well, that's one issue that I have, right? That to me, if you claim that he still exists, even while that logical problem is there to hold you back, then you might as well believe in 1 + 1 = 3. That's the comparison that I'm making. Not that God would just go and say, here's 1 apple plus 1 apple equals 3 apples.
Yeah, is it possible that you can make yourself not draw that parallel? Because I would have no trouble believing that God could suspend the laws of gravity temporarily, but you could never convince me that God could make 1 + 1 = 3. So I can't make the same point.
Yes, but you can say, okay, so there's maybe there's an incompatibility there, because when you tell me that God, you say, okay, there's a beginning to the universe, and there's nothing before that beginning. Only God. It was God in his own existence. He had always existed on his own.
He might have created
another making
universe,
decisions,
something like that before that. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So then you start making these. Right. So it's like, okay, well, he could have done this, and you can assert a lot of things.
Sure.
Yeah. I would be with you on that one.
I don't have any evidence for it, so I would assume that he did until I had evidence to the contrary. But I don't see why it's not illogical to think that he could have done other things before. But I'm saying within our universe had a beginning and will have an end.
Yes. What I'm saying is that to me it's on the same level. Okay, I'll state one and then I'll state the other. Okay. 1 + 1 = 3, illogical. God being of a particular configuration. Do you know what I mean by when I say that?
Yes.
He is of a specific configuration. I mean, it's arbitrary, the decisions that he's made, as far as I'm concerned. Like, there's no perfect decision. There's no. He made a decision because that would almost imply a personality. Like he said, okay, this is what's going to happen. God has a certain personality, so he's of a configuration. Okay, Randy versus Eric Dion. You're of a certain configuration. You have a certain personality. You might have triggers in your brain to be a lot nicer than I am, right? Probably the case, right? Probably the case. That's what I mean by configuration. So if God's of a specific configuration, and yet you're stating that he's always existed, well then what caused his specific configuration to be? So right there, that's where the logic breaks down for me. I equate that with 1 + 1 = 3.
If his configuration required a cause, then he wouldn't be eternal.
Okay, but the fact that he's eternal and it's like saying, okay, God is blue and he's been like that ever since. Yeah, but why is he blue? Well, he doesn't require a cause. He's God. He just is blue. Well, yeah, but no, that's too arbitrary for me. That in a multiverse there is no such thing as a cause, because it takes on every possible color, because it has to. That's the only way to possibly exist. To me, that's the only possibility, is that if the possibilities loop onto themselves, right? If you draw the line at God and you say, well, he's the answer to everything, then you also have to say, well, okay, but What caused God to make his decisions? Why does he have the personality that he has? That to me is where it gets as illogical as 1 + 1 = 2. Because it's like you have to disregard all that. So how do you go further? How do you answer? How do you give an answer to that? You have to turn a blind eye and just have faith, right? That's where I can't